Hey everyone! Tonight we're not chasing sleep. We're quietly listening to what the mind seeks as it softens into rest. Why do we reach for voices, stories, or soft sounds at night, not just to fall asleep, but to feel less alone? This episode explores that quiet need. Take a moment now. Let your breath slow, your room dim, and the day loosen its grip. If you enjoy calm, thoughtful stories like this, feel free to like or subscribe. It truly helps. And if you feel like sharing, I'd love to hear in the comments, what kind of content do you reach for at night, and what do you think it gives you? This is Sleep Tight Psychology, night stories for the thinking mind. There's a moment each night, maybe you know it, when the lights are off, the notifications have stopped, and silence finally arrives. And yet, you reach for something, a voice, a story, a sound. Not because you can't sleep, but maybe because you don't want to do it alone. If that sounds familiar, you're far from alone. Millions of people around the world turn to content-based companionship at night, a podcast, a documentary, rain sounds, an old familiar video. And it's not necessarily because they're anxious. Sometimes it's about presence, not silence, not stimulation, just something or someone there. What we're often reaching for isn't noise, it's connection, even in its most passive form. From the earliest stages of life, human voices, especially soft, rhythmic ones, become linked with comfort. Think of a baby being rocked while someone hums, a child drifting off as a story is read aloud. These aren't just routines, they're felt experiences of safety. As adults, that need doesn't go away. It just evolves. Instead of a parent's voice, we fall asleep to a narrator we trust, or a familiar show we've watched a dozen times. It's the tone, not the content, that helps us unwind. Let's pause for a moment. Can you think of the voice you most often fall asleep to? Not just the content, but the rhythm, the pacing, the feel. There's a reason it works. Gentle, low, familiar voices tend to activate the body's calming systems. They nudge the nervous system toward rest, even if you're no longer paying attention. It's a quiet kind of companionship, one that asks nothing from you. And then there's silence. Not always as peaceful as it seems. Silence can open the door to the thoughts we've pushed away. Worries, regrets, planning. This is why the mind sometimes speeds up just as the body is trying to slow down. Still, not everyone is trying to block thoughts. Some are simply trying to soften the silence. Even a soft sound, a voice, a breeze, distant murmuring, gives the mind something gentle to hold. Not enough to focus on, just enough to rest beside. There's a kind of ease in that. The presence of sound without demand, the comfort of company without conversation. And in today's world, we've created new versions of bedtime rituals. Voices in our headphones, videos with no surprises, content designed not to entertain, but to accompany. You're not weak for wanting that. You're not distracted. You're simply human. If you've ever wondered, why do I fall asleep better with a voice in the room? There's your answer. It's not distraction, it's instinct. It's the quiet relief of not being alone with your thoughts. By now, your body may be settling into the rhythm of this episode. Your breath a little slower, the edges of thought a little softer. And if so, you're already experiencing something we're about to explore. How our brains begin to link certain voices or sounds with the act of falling asleep. This is the quiet power of conditioning. When you listen to the same narrator, playlist, or type of content at night, your brain starts to recognize it, not just as entertainment, but as a signal, a cue, the moment that says, it's okay to let go now. You might not remember what was said, but something in your body reacts. Your shoulders drop, your breath deepens. It's not the information, it's the pattern. Your brain knows, this is the part where we turn down. Night after night, the repetition becomes a gentle training, not forced, just familiar, and the body responds. Even simple routines, brushing your teeth, dimming the lights, pressing play on a certain voice, begin to create internal rhythms. The systems that govern sleep respond to predictability. Heart rate slows, body temperature shifts. It's not the content that matters most, it's the regularity of it. But there's a catch. That same conditioning that helps you sleep can sometimes turn into dependence. If you always use the same sound to fall asleep, a specific video, a familiar voice, a single episode, your brain may come to rely on that exact cue. So when it's not available, sleep can feel harder to reach. It's not harmful, but it can feel jarring, like something's missing, because in a way, something is. Your nervous system didn't get the signal it was waiting for. That's why it can be helpful to gently expand your routine, to build flexibility into your cues. Instead of training your brain to sleep to one exact sound, you can shape a broader association. This kind of sound equals rest, not only this one voice equals sleep. That's the difference between habit and resilience. A few small changes, alternating between voices, using similar pacing or tones, can help you stay grounded even when your routine shifts. Travel, tech glitches, or life changes won't throw you off as easily. There's also a deeper practice many sleep specialists suggest, connecting cues to sleep onset only. In other words, using familiar content just as you fall asleep, but not during middle-of-the-night wake-ups. This helps your brain associate those cues with drifting off, not lying awake trying to fall back again. It might sound subtle, but over time, that association becomes powerful, because when your brain hears a familiar tone and thinks, this is the part where we rest, the whole system responds. Let's reflect for a moment. Is there something, a sound, a voice, a routine, that helps you fall asleep, even when you're not really listening? That's your cue. So here you are again, with that one episode. Maybe it's the same podcast you've queued up every night for months. You know the host's voice, you know the opening line. You probably don't remember the ending, and that's kind of the point. We don't just want content to fall asleep. We want familiar content. And tonight, we're exploring why. The human brain is drawn to predictability, especially during transitions like the shift from wakefulness to sleep, because familiarity reduces mental effort. When you already know what's coming next, you don't have to stay alert. You can let go. That's why we rewatch the same show, replay the same audio, fall asleep to something we've already memorized. It's not boredom, it's relief. Your mind doesn't have to do anything. Inside the brain, there's a quiet system that stays active as you drift off, the part that handles memory, reflection, and internal chatter. And when you listen to something new, that system stays engaged. But when it's familiar, it winds down. Familiar content becomes background, not noise. A kind of gentle scaffolding your mind can lean against without needing to process or respond. That's why people often say, I can't sleep to new episodes, only the old ones work. It's not about the story anymore. It's about the rhythm, the tone, the feeling of nothing surprising happening. There's a kind of safety in repetition, a quiet signal that says, you've been here before. You know how this ends. It's okay to rest. When you listen to the same thing every night, it becomes a ritual, a private ceremony, one that doesn't demand attention, it just keeps you company. It's not the voice alone that makes you sleepy. It's what that voice represents: comfort, consistency, permission to stop thinking. There's even a term some mental health educators use: passive containment. The feeling of being quietly held by something or someone who expects nothing from you. It's why a calm conversation in another room can help you sleep, why soft rain or distant sound becomes soothing. It gives your nervous system a reason to stop scanning the environment, to settle. And this isn't new. We've always repeated things at bedtime. Children ask for the same story over and over, and adults in many traditions used prayers, chants, or poems not to entertain, but to signal safety through ritual. We've simply changed the form. Instead of stories around a fire, we now gather around familiar voices in headphones, and the comfort is just as real. Let's take a moment. What's your familiar? Maybe it's a voice, a playlist, a video you saved years ago and never deleted. Whatever it is, it's not a crutch. It's a quiet companion, a thread between who you were yesterday and who you are now, ready to let go. Is it a problem to rely on the familiar? Not unless it becomes limiting. You can gently expand your library, rotate between a few favorites, but overall, there's no harm in returning to what soothes you. In fact, it's a gift, a small tool your mind has chosen to wrap up the day, not by effort, but by ease. You know that feeling. It's Sunday night, the weekend is slipping away, the lights are off, the phone is charging, and your brain suddenly turns on. A short list becomes a long one. A tiny worry becomes a conversation. Thoughts arrive in waves, just when you are hoping for stillness. This experience is often called Sunday night anxiety, but at its core, it's not about the day itself. It's about transition. The shift from weekend to weekday is more than a calendar flip. It's a psychological reset, from rest mode to performance mode. And that shift activates more than just your to-do list. It stirs up your nervous system. The mind starts preparing for what's next, even when there's nothing urgent. It runs rehearsals. It scans for what might go wrong. Not because it's trying to ruin your night, but because it thinks it's helping. The problem is, it's helping at the wrong time. This surge in thinking, planning, worrying, anticipating, is one of the most common barriers to sleep, and it often peaks on Sunday nights, when the contrast between off and on is at its sharpest. If you've ever noticed that Sunday sleep feels different, you're not imagining it. Your body and brain are reacting to a demand that hasn't even arrived yet, but the shift has already begun. Let's take a closer look. Your brain has a region responsible for planning, decisions, and imagining the future. And on Sunday nights, that area tends to light up. Meanwhile, your internal chemistry, things like stress hormones and alertness signals, may also start to rise earlier than usual. Especially if your weekend schedule was inconsistent, you might feel a kind of internal jet lag. Late nights, long mornings, daytime naps, they all shift your rhythm just enough to make Sunday feel like a crash landing. That transition can be jarring, even if nothing stressful is happening yet. Your mind behaves like it's already Monday morning. Maybe you've felt it, a kind of quiet rehearsal for the week ahead, the mind scanning for tasks, mistakes, or things to fix. You don't want it to happen, but it happens anyway. Here's something important to remember. Your mind isn't trying to sabotage you. It's trying to protect you. It just doesn't know how to turn off. That's why gentle Sunday night rituals can help. Even simple things, like looking at your calendar, choosing your clothes, or writing a short list for the next day, can give the brain a sense of order. It doesn't have to keep holding everything. Let's pause here. What does your Sunday night usually feel like? Do you sense that pressure to be ready, even when all you want is rest? If so, you're not alone. You're not weak. You're just human, adjusting to a weekly rhythm that's louder than most. And the more we understand that rhythm, the softer it becomes. You've probably heard it before. Keep your sleep schedule consistent, even on weekends. But let's be honest, who actually does? Friday night runs late, Saturday mornings stretch lazily, maybe there's a nap in the afternoon, and Sunday evening? One last movie, one last scroll. It feels comforting and very human. But hidden in that comfort is a subtle disruption. Your internal clock gets confused, and that confusion might be the reason Sunday nights feel so restless. Let's unpack what's going on. Your body runs on a rhythm, a built-in 24-hour clock. It helps regulate everything from sleep and digestion to body temperature and mood. And while light plays a role in keeping that clock on track, so does routine. When you wake up and go to sleep at roughly the same time every day, your body begins to prepare for rest hours in advance, even before you feel tired. But shift that schedule for just a day or two, and your system has to readjust. That adjustment isn't instant. This mismatch is sometimes called a kind of weekend jet lag, not because you traveled anywhere, but because your rhythm did. Imagine you usually wake at 7 a.m., then sleep until 10 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday. That's like flying 2 time zones west on Friday night and trying to return by Monday morning. No wonder the transition feels rough. Here's what happens internally. Your brain delays the release of melatonin, the hormone that cues sleep. If you've napped or slept in, your sleep pressure, the natural drive to sleep, is weaker. And if you woke up groggy, your body might be carrying leftover inertia into the evening. All of this combines into one frustrating experience. You're awake, even when you don't want to be. Now, this doesn't mean your weekends need to be rigid. You don't have to wake up at dawn to keep your rhythm. But small, gentle shifts can make a big difference. For example, try to keep your wake-up time within an hour of your weekday routine. Open your blinds in the morning. Light helps reset your clock. Avoid napping too late in the day. It delays that natural sleep pressure. And if you sleep in, begin winding down earlier than usual to rebalance. Your rhythm doesn't demand perfection, but it does need signals, small, repeated cues that help it stay aligned. Let's take a moment. Think about your weekends. Do they leave you feeling restored or scrambled? Does Sunday night arrive with resistance or readiness? Whatever the pattern, it doesn't mean something is wrong. It just means your internal clock is trying to resync. And the more consistent the cues, the easier it becomes for your body and mind to find rest. So far, we've explored the emotional weight of Sunday nights and how small weekend shifts can throw off your inner rhythm. But knowing why sleep feels elusive doesn't always help it arrive. That's where rituals come in. Not rigid routines or productivity hacks, just small, steady actions that quietly tell your brain, you're safe now. It's okay to rest. These simple gestures can ease your nervous system out of its Sunday tension. They help shift you from mental momentum to stillness. And they don't need to be elaborate. Here are a few calming practices you might try. Dim the lights an hour before bed. Darkness helps your body begin the transition naturally. It's not just about visibility. It's about signaling closure. Write down 3 things you want to do tomorrow. Not a full to-do list, just a few anchors. This offloads the mental weight of holding everything in your head. Sip something warm. Herbal tea, warm milk, or just hot water can become a comfort cue. It's about the sensation, a quiet, physical message that things are winding down. Play something familiar, a voice, a a song, or even silence. Whatever your mind associates with letting go. The power of ritual isn't in the action itself, it's in the meaning behind it. Each one becomes a gentle agreement with your body. We're done for today. And that's especially important on Sundays, when the shift from openness to structure can feel like emotional whiplash. You might feel resistant, or restless, or a little sad. Not because something is wrong, but because something is ending. These subtle feelings are sometimes described as a kind of anticipatory grief, a quiet mourning of freedom, before responsibility begins again. But rituals can hold that feeling. They create soft buffers between weekend and weekday. They help you transition, without rushing. Here's a simple ritual you can try tonight. About an hour before bed, lower the lights, turn off your notifications, let the noise pause. Play soft, lyric-free music or light a candle. Write down 3 gentle goals for tomorrow. And when you're ready, press play on your chosen calm content, even this voice. These don't have to be perfect. You don't need to do them every night. Rituals aren't rules, they're cues. And when the world feels unpredictable, these cues become threads, linking you gently from one day to the next. Let's pause. Do you already have a ritual, even if it doesn't feel like one? Maybe it's brushing your teeth, folding the same blanket, or placing your phone face down on the nightstand. Those gestures matter more than they seem. They whisper to your nervous system, "You're done now. You can stop holding everything." And that's exactly what the Sunday brain needs. Not more effort, not more pressure, just space and permission. Let's drift deeper. Your eyes are closed, your muscles still, but your brain is still moving. Quietly, purposefully, you're dreaming. And while dreams might feel random or strange, they're doing something deeply important, especially when it comes to emotions and memory. Sleep isn't just rest, it's reprocessing, and dreams are part of that. During a certain stage of sleep, often the one most linked with dreaming, your brain starts organizing and integrating what you've experienced during the day, especially the emotional parts. When something affects you, a moment of joy, a sting of regret, a memory you didn't know was still with you, your brain doesn't just record it as a fact, it holds on to the emotional tone too. As you dream, the parts of your brain that handle memory and emotion begin to interact. But here's the gentle twist. Your body's stress signals, the ones that cause emotional reactivity, are quiet, so the dream can explore the memory without triggering the same intensity. It becomes a kind of safe rehearsal, a soft reactivation, your mind touching the emotion, but from a distance. This might explain why, in dreams, you revisit people or events you thought you were done with, but they arrive differently, shifted, symbolic, softened. It's not nonsense. It's your brain filing the experience, not erasing it, but removing its sharpest edges. Some researchers describe this process as a kind of emotional metabolizing. You keep the meaning, but lose the weight. You remember the moment, but not the sting. Let's take a simple example. Say you had a difficult conversation with someone you love. It stayed with you all day. That night, you dream of wandering through a crowd, looking for someone. Eventually, you find them. They smile from far away. You wake up feeling lighter. Nothing got solved, but something shifted. That dream wasn't a message, it was a process, a quiet way for your brain to move emotional energy into resolution. Not all dreams carry emotional charge. Some are playful, others surreal. But even then, something deeper may be happening. The brain is sifting, sorting, softening, making sense, or at least, making peace. You may have noticed this. After vivid dreams, you sometimes feel better, clearer, more okay, even if the content was strange. That's not a fluke. That's the dream doing its work. It's not an escape, it's repair. Let's pause for a moment. Can you remember your last dream? What mood did it carry? Did it reflect something you're still holding? You don't have to decode it. Sometimes, it's enough to notice it was there, and to trust that your mind was working gently in the background. Even when you sleep, your emotional self is still being cared for. Let's keep going. Deeper into the dream, you're still asleep, the world around you is quiet. But inside your mind, something fascinating is happening. Your brain is making connections, replaying ideas, testing possibilities, not just for emotion, but for insight. This is where dreams become creative. In this state, the brain doesn't just rest. It rearranges, it explores, it takes information from your day and quietly reshuffles it into something new. Have you ever woken up with an idea that felt fresh? A problem that suddenly made sense? A perspective that felt clearer? That shift, that clarity, might have come from the dreaming brain. During this stage of sleep, certain brain regions light up, the ones that help with pattern recognition, visual thinking, and abstract connections. At the same time, the logical, rule-following part of the mind takes a break. So ideas are free to flow, unfiltered, unexpected, creative. That's why dreams can feel strange or symbolic. It's not just randomness, it's recombination. Your mind, untethered from rules, is trying out new possibilities. Some people notice this most when they've been stuck. You wrestle with a decision, you can't find the right phrase, and after sleep, the answer is just there, not forced, just surfaced. That's the dream doing quiet work. In experiments where people were given puzzles or creative tasks, those who reached dream-rich sleep were more likely to find solutions afterward, not because they dreamed of the answer, but because their minds reorganized the problem from a new angle. It's like your subconscious kept tinkering while you rested. Artists, musicians, inventors, many of them describe moments of sudden clarity after sleep. Not magic, not mystery, just the mind finally given space to connect the dots. But you don't have to be creating a masterpiece to benefit. Even everyday challenges, emotional or mental, can soften under the gentle focus of a dreaming brain. There's also something called threat rehearsal. Your brain may use dream states to simulate stress or conflict, but safely. You might dream of being late, being chased, being unprepared, but there's no real danger, just practice, mental rehearsal, testing what-if scenarios without consequence. That's part of the reason even chaotic dreams can serve you. They prepare your mind to navigate life with more flexibility. Let's pause. Have you ever had a dream that didn't make logical sense, but left you with a feeling, an idea, or a subtle shift? That's the dreaming brain reorganizing thought, not with rules, but with intuition. And even if you don't remember your dreams, you still receive the benefits. Toward the end of the night, your dream cycles grow longer. This is often when your most creative, imaginative work happens, quietly, in the background. That's why deep, uncut sleep matters. When you shorten your sleep, you're not just cutting rest, you're cutting the most inventive part of the night. For most of human history, dreams were viewed as messages, signs, symbols, echoes of something deeper, maybe even spiritual. Even today, many people still wonder, what does my dream mean? But modern science has taken a slightly different approach. Instead of asking what dreams mean, it's asking what dreams do. What is the brain actually doing during dreams? And why might this strange, nightly theater matter so much? To answer that, we need to look at how our understanding of dreams has evolved. Early psychology focused heavily on interpretation, the idea that dreams reveal hidden thoughts or repressed emotions. And while that idea still lingers in popular culture, science began shifting towards something more measurable, the mechanics of dreaming itself. As tools improved, researchers began studying how dreams are formed, not through symbols, but through brain activity. And what they found is this: dreams aren't just mental noise, they're linked to real changes in how the brain processes memory, emotion, and learning. Most of the dreaming we remember happens during REM sleep, a stage where the brain becomes almost as active as it is when awake. But something strange happens during this time. Some regions quiet down, like the ones that manage logic and self-awareness, while others ramp up, especially those tied to emotion, imagery, and memory. That's why dreams often feel vivid and emotional, but also unpredictable or surreal. The brain, during dreams, is still at work, just in a different mode. Some imaging studies show that emotion-related areas of the brain are even more active during REM sleep than during waking life. This supports the idea that dreams help process feelings by reactivating emotional content in a safe, symbolic way. People who get more dream-rich sleep often feel more balanced the next day, less reactive, less overwhelmed, not because the content of the dream was life-changing, but because the emotional charge was softened, reorganized. There's also growing interest in how dreams support learning. In studies where people learn a new task, those who sleep, even for a short time, tend to perform better afterward, and even when they don't dream about the task, their brains are still quietly working through the material in background ways. It's not always flashy, but it's effective. So what are dreams? They're not just images. They're not just memories stitched together. They're brain events, deeply active ones, helping us integrate, regulate, reorganize, and sometimes rehearse. They may not carry universal meanings, but they carry function, and that makes them meaningful in a very grounded way. Let's pause. You don't need to interpret every dream. You don't need to assign it a message. Simply by dreaming, your brain is doing something wise and necessary. You're processing, you're letting go, you're building meaning, even if you never remember it in the morning. In every part of the world, people go to sleep. But how they do it and what leads up to it can feel profoundly different. Bedtime rituals are more than habits. They're emotional scripts. And across cultures, these scripts carry deep signals of safety, identity, and belonging. So let's take a gentle walk through 3 very different traditions and listen to what they tell us, not just about sleep, but about what it means to feel held. In America, bedtime is often practical, a checklist. Brush your teeth, dim the lights, plug in your phone. For many adults, winding down may mean watching a show or scrolling before bed. For children, there's often a more structured routine, a bath, a story, a song. It's comforting, but often framed as getting through the steps. Sleep becomes something to complete, not something to move toward. The pace is fast, and sometimes the quiet never fully arrives. Still, there's something sacred in the moments that do slow down, like being read to at night, not for the story itself, but for the rhythm of the voice, the closeness, the shared breath between sentences that becomes the memory that stays. In Japan, bedtime rituals tend to be quieter, more deliberate, not loud or verbal, but intentional. There's an atmosphere to it, a softness. Futons are laid on tatami floors, shoji screens slide into place, and the act of preparing the room becomes part of preparing the self. The room transforms, not a separate bedroom, but a space that adapts to rest. Sleep is treated as part of the day's natural rhythm, not a break from it. Small cues, like low lighting, soft tea, light stretching, gently tell the body, you can let go now. And in daily life, sleep isn't stigmatized. Falling asleep in public, on a train, in a meeting, isn't seen as failure. It's accepted as needed rest. Rest isn't something earned, it's something integrated. In Mexico, the tone is warmer, more communal. Evenings, especially in close-knit households, are full of sound and family. Dinner might be shared late, conversations flow, children fall asleep while voices are still in the air. There's less separation between day and night. Instead of winding down, families often wind in, gathering close as the day fades. For many, sleep doesn't begin in solitude. It begins in togetherness. Cousins, siblings, grandparents nearby. A familiar song, a flickering TV, a parent humming in the next room. It's not about independence, it's about belonging. And that sense of emotional closeness acts as the lullaby. Across these countries, America, Japan, Mexico, bedtime takes on different textures: practical versus mindful versus communal, structured versus fluid, solitary versus shared. But one thing unites them all: the need to feel safe enough to rest, not just to sleep, but to soften, to surrender the day, knowing that someone or something is holding the space. Let's settle in a little deeper, because it's not just about what we do before bed. It's about what those actions mean. Across cultures, bedtime rituals are filled with quiet symbols, small gestures that tell the brain and body, you are safe now. Sleep isn't only a biological act, it's an act of surrender, and surrender only happens when safety is felt. One of the most universal cues is light. Dimming the lights isn't just practical, it's symbolic. A lamp, a candle, even the act of closing curtains creates a soft boundary between the outside world and your private space. In many traditions, low lighting cues not just melatonin, but a message of closure. In Islamic cultures, the final prayer of the day often marks this shift, not just spiritual, but psychological. In Korean homes, the bedtime ritual of cleansing, skincare, warming the room, changing into soft clothes, is less about appearance and more about somatic storytelling. It tells the nervous system it's okay to slow down. Sound plays a similar role. In some homes, it's white noise or soft music. In India, it might be the faint sound of temple bells. In Navajo communities, nighttime storytelling connects generations, while also calming the body and grounding the mind. These are not just background sounds, they are emotional anchors. I once stayed in a mountain village where the only sound before bed was a low, wooden wind chime. It wasn't decorative, it was a signal. When it rang, people stopped talking, turned off lights, and the whole village seemed to exhale together. I still think about that chime when I'm trying to fall asleep. Objects can do this too. A weighted blanket, a childhood pillow, a specific way of folding the covers. These items carry emotional memory. Their presence becomes a tactile form of reassurance. In Scandinavian cultures, the bedroom is often designed to be emotionally neutral, soft, muted, uncluttered. In many Latin American homes, it's the presence of other people that gives comfort. Falling asleep to familiar voices in the next room, or the muffled sound of a TV show in the background, provides a sense of safety. These varied rituals all serve the same purpose. The brain is always scanning. Am I safe? Am I alone? Is it time to rest? And the repetition of specific cues answers that question over and over. This learned safety is called contextual conditioning. When bedtime feels predictable, the body begins to relax before the head even hits the pillow. If your current sleep routine feels scattered or rushed, that's okay. You don't need to overhaul everything. You just need a few consistent, meaningful cues. Maybe for you, it's the act of turning off one specific light, or flipping your pillow over, or placing your phone down face first. These gestures may seem small, but they matter. They're how your brain knows the day is over. Let's take a breath here. We've explored how rituals across cultures shape the emotional meaning of bedtime, creating cues of safety and closure. But today, something quieter and more disruptive has taken their place: the digital world. Phones, laptops, and streaming shows have gradually replaced many of our nighttime transitions. Not deliberately, just slowly over time. In psychology, this is called ritual displacement. When new habits override older ones, not because they're better, but because they're easier. Things like checking your phone in bed, streaming one more episode, or scrolling social media don't offer the same emotional closure. They actually confuse the nervous system. Blue light suppresses melatonin, but even more than that, the content we consume keeps the brain alert. Swiping, reacting, thinking, it all keeps us just engaged enough that the body can't wind down. And even when we set the phone down, our mind continues processing. There's a lag, a tension that doesn't fade right away. I've noticed this in my own routine. If I scroll right before bed, my dreams are more fragmented and my thoughts harder to quiet. But if I take just 10 minutes to stretch or journal, something offline, everything shifts. It's subtle, but real. There's also a loss of meaning. Traditional rituals like prayer, tea, or stories weren't just tasks. They were symbolic. They helped signal that the day was done, that it was okay to let go. Without those soft transitions, many people describe feeling unmoored, like rest is just a pause between scrolls, not something complete. And it's not just adults. Children are affected too. When screen time replaces bedtime routines, they miss out on emotional anchors, story time, singing, talking about their day. These moments aren't just nice extras. They shape emotional security. Without them, sleep becomes something we fall into by accident, not something we're led into. So how do we reclaim ritual in a digital world? Not by banning screens entirely, but by adding back intention, a warm light, a simple phrase, a quiet habit that says, "The day is ending." Psychologists call this a closing ceremony, a small act that shifts us from doing into being. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It just has to be yours. I have a friend who plays the same 30-second piece of piano music every night before bed. That's it. Just that one thing. But for her, it's a threshold, a signal, the sound that tells her body it's safe to sleep. Let's pause for a moment. You're not going to bed, not yet. You're not settling in for a full night's sleep. You're just lying down, maybe on the couch, maybe in a quiet corner in the middle of the day. Your eyelids feel heavy, and before long, you've entered one of the most powerful yet misunderstood states of rest: the nap. From a neurological perspective, napping isn't just a mini version of sleep. It's a distinct state, with its own rhythms and effects. And depending on how long you nap, 10 minutes, 30, or 90, the benefits can vary widely. Personally, I've found that when I nap for 20 minutes, it feels like a reset. But if I go past 40, I wake up groggy, like I'm stuck between worlds. That grogginess has a cause, and understanding it helps. In short naps, around 10 to 20 minutes, the brain stays mostly in lighter stages of sleep. Your body relaxes, brainwaves slow, the nervous system begins to disengage, but you don't fall into deep sleep. This is key because light sleep offers a boost in alertness, mood, and attention, without the mental fog that can follow deeper stages. Think of it as a quick refresh, not a full reboot. Now, if you nap longer, 30 to 60 minutes, your brain begins to enter slow-wave sleep. That's the deep, restorative kind, great for memory and physical repair. But waking up during this stage can feel jarring. It's like interrupting a story halfway through. You may feel disoriented because your brain wasn't ready to re-engage. This effect is called sleep inertia. It's not a failure, it's biology. If you nap even longer, around 90 minutes, you may complete a full sleep cycle: light sleep, deep sleep, and REM. These longer naps can improve creativity, problem-solving, and emotional regulation, but only if you wake at the right moment. That's why nap timing matters. Short naps are great for a quick lift. Longer naps need careful planning. Chemically, naps help lower adenosine, a molecule that builds up the longer you're awake and makes you feel sleepy. A short nap reduces this buildup, helping you feel more alert. Naps also lower cortisol and ease your nervous system into a calmer state. Across cultures, naps are woven into daily life. In Spain, the siesta tradition. In Japan, inamuri, sleeping in public, is seen as a sign of hard work, not laziness. In Silicon Valley, nap pods are now found in offices. I used to think naps were unproductive, but when I learned how even a short rest could reset my mind, I stopped fighting it. Now, it feels like a tool, not a failure. So the next time your body asks for a pause, even a brief one, know that you're not being lazy. You're tuning into something ancient and wise, a rhythm that resets, even in just a few minutes. Let's pick up from where we left off. You've taken a nap, maybe 20 minutes, maybe 90, and you wake up feeling different. A problem that felt stuck is now clearer. A thought that wouldn't form now clicks into place. Why does that happen? It has to do with how naps support creativity and memory. Sleep scientists have long known that rest plays a role in memory consolidation, especially during deeper stages. But even short naps, without reaching full REM sleep, can boost how your brain sorts, stores, and connects ideas. Your brain handles different types of memory. Declarative memory, like facts and names. Procedural memory, like typing or riding a bike. Emotional memory, the way moments feel. And creative insight, the sudden connections between pieces that didn't seem related. Naps, even brief ones, touch all of these in small but powerful ways. In a well-known study by Dr. Sarah Mednick, participants who napped for 60 to 90 minutes significantly outperformed others on pattern recognition and problem-solving tasks. Interestingly, even those who didn't reach REM sleep still showed improvements. That suggests the brain can begin reorganizing information quietly in the background, even in light sleep. It's like collecting puzzle pieces during the day, then letting your mind test combinations while you rest. I've often found that when I'm stuck on a paragraph or trying to solve something tricky, lying down for just 15 minutes shifts something. I don't always wake up with a perfect answer, but something lifts. A sentence appears. An idea rises. Like my subconscious was working while I wasn't looking. What's happening neurologically is also fascinating. During light sleep, the brain activates the default mode network, the set of regions that lights up when we're not focused on tasks. It's where creativity, daydreaming, and emotional connection live. This network is also where ideas are incubated, which helps explain those post-nap breakthroughs. One study even found that people who napped after learning a new task were more likely to discover a hidden pattern others missed. The nap didn't give them new data. It cleared mental space for a deeper connection. Even 10 to 15-minute naps can improve working memory, that ability to hold and process small bits of information. Emotionally, naps help regulate the amygdala, the part of your brain that handles threat response. This is why a short nap after a stressful morning can feel like more than rest. It's an emotional reset. So if you've ever woken up with a sharper mind, a more balanced mood, or an unexpected idea, it's not magic. It's your brain doing what it's built to do. Naps don't just make you feel better, they help your thoughts settle, Your memories sort, and your creativity breathes. Let's take a gentle step outside the brain for a moment and look at how different cultures shape the way we nap, or avoid napping altogether. You might think of naps as a personal choice, but in reality, how we rest during the day reflects values, norms, and invisible beliefs about work, time, and worth. In Japan, there's a practice called inamuri, which loosely translates to being present while sleeping. It's not seen as lazy. In fact, falling asleep on a train or at a meeting is often respected, a quiet signal that someone has worked so hard they needed to rest. It blurs the line between work and recovery. It reframes fatigue as earned. Contrast that with many Western countries, especially in places like the United States, where napping can carry a subtle shame. You'll hear things like, "Sleep is for the weak," or "You can sleep when you're dead," as if rest must be earned, and fatigue is a personal flaw. In high-pressure environments, people often pride themselves on being always on. But the data tells a different story. Research shows that short naps improve focus, reaction time, creativity, and emotional stability. NASA even found that a 26-minute nap improved pilot alertness by more than 50%. Despite this, many workplaces still don't create space for rest. We have coffee breaks, but rarely clarity breaks. I remember when I first started working from home, I felt weird closing my eyes for 20 minutes in the middle of the day. I'd draw the curtains and keep my phone nearby, like I was hiding. But over time, I started to notice I was sharper afterward, calmer, more focused. Eventually, I stopped hiding it and started honoring it. Other cultures have long made space for midday rest. In Spain, the siesta is still honored in some towns. In Mexico, Greece, and parts of the Middle East, afternoon rest follows a natural rhythm. Eat, pause, then return to activity. These cultures don't see time as a straight line. They see it as a cycle. In hustle-driven cultures, the opposite belief shows up, that rest must be justified. This creates what psychologists call all-or-nothing thinking. If you're not constantly productive, you must be falling behind. But the truth is more human. Productivity and rest are not enemies. They are partners. If you've ever caught yourself saying, "I don't deserve a nap," ask where that belief came from. Your body doesn't shame you. Your culture might. But your body knows the truth. Naps aren't signs of weakness. They are signs of responsiveness. And the more we allow space for them, the more our minds and moods can return to center. Maybe, in time, our culture will catch up to what the brain already knows. Rest is not optional, it's essential. Let's begin with a quiet question. If you're truly asleep, why is your brain still so active? You might assume that sleep is a kind of switch, a shutdown. But neuroscience tells a different story. One where hidden networks hum in the background, organizing and processing even while your body lies still. One of the most important of these networks is called the default mode network, or DMN. It's a collection of brain regions that light up when your mind is at rest, not focused on a task, but drifting, reflecting, remembering. It's the mode of daydreaming, internal storytelling, and self-awareness. What's fascinating is that this network doesn't power down during sleep. In fact, studies show that during non-REM sleep, particularly in lighter and middle stages, parts of the DMN remain quietly active. The medial prefrontal cortex and the posterior cingulate cortex, both key players in the DMN, continue to hum as your body enters deep rest. This helps explain why dreams often feel like puzzle pieces from waking life. Your brain is replaying and recombining fragments, not to entertain, but to consolidate memory, to smooth emotional edges, to prepare for the day ahead. I've had those nights, maybe you have too, where something small and forgotten suddenly appears in a dream. A hallway from a place you haven't visited in years, a stranger's voice you barely recall. And you wake up wondering, why that? Was my brain just sorting through the closet? Some researchers call this offline processing. It's like your brain is doing mental maintenance, organizing, discarding, and tagging what matters. This process helps with everything from memory formation to emotional regulation, and it's driven, in part, by the DMN. When the DMN functions smoothly, we feel calm and reflective, but when it's overactive, especially at night, it can lead to rumination. That's when thoughts loop and the mind won't let go. People with anxiety and depression often show increased connectivity in this network. Their minds stay stuck in self-referential thought, even during sleep, and that can disrupt the very rest that the brain needs. There is good news, though. Practices like deep breathing, mindfulness, or listening to soft audio before bed can help. These don't shut the network off, but they shift its rhythm, away from looping and toward stillness. I've found that even something as simple as counting my breaths can change the tone of my mind at night. It doesn't make the thoughts disappear, but it softens them. If you've ever wondered whether your brain is truly off when you sleep, the gentle answer is no. But that's not a flaw, it's a feature. Your brain isn't just resting, it's working behind the scenes, transforming the day's noise into something quieter, more meaningful, and more organized. At night, the brain doesn't shut down. It shifts roles, from doing to digesting, from reacting to reflecting. And the default mode network is part of that quiet choreography. So far, we've explored the quiet rhythms of the sleeping brain, but not all nighttime activity is subtle. Some of it walks, some of it talks, some of it even makes sandwiches or moves furniture. These are parasomnias, unusual behaviors that occur during sleep, when the boundaries between brain states blur. They're more common than you might think, and they show us how partially awake the brain can be while the body is still technically asleep. One of the most well-known parasomnias is sleepwalking. It typically happens during non-REM sleep, especially early in the night, when the body is deeply relaxed but the brain hasn't fully disengaged. Scans show that motor areas like the brainstem and cerebellum are active during these episodes, while the frontal cortex, the part responsible for decision-making and judgment, remains quiet. This means someone can walk, open doors, or navigate a room without any conscious awareness. Sleepwalking isn't the only parasomnia. There's also sleep talking, which can range from murmurs to full conversations. Sleep paralysis, where your mind wakes before your body, can come with intense sensations and even hallucinations. REM sleep behavior disorder, another type, involves physically acting out dreams, sometimes with sudden movements or speech. In all these cases, the brain's protective barriers that normally separate dreaming from movement don't function correctly. Normally, a neurotransmitter like GABA paralyzes the body during REM sleep to prevent physical action. But when that system misfires, dreams can leak into behavior. Another phenomenon that most people experience but rarely notice is micro-awakenings. Even in healthy sleep, the brain briefly wakes dozens of times each night, often in response to sound, temperature shifts, or internal signals. You might turn over or adjust your blanket without remembering. But for people with insomnia or light sleep, these tiny wake-ups can feel more like interruptions. If you wake just enough to notice but not enough to remember, you may feel like you barely slept, even if your sleep tracker says otherwise. A study from the University of Montreal found that people's subjective sense of rest correlated not just with how long they slept, but how often these micro-awakenings occurred. In other words, sleep continuity matters as much as sleep duration. The brain wants a full story, not a fragmented one. So what can you do? For most parasomnias, especially in children, the brain eventually matures out of them. But in adults, stress, fatigue, and irregular routines can trigger or worsen these patterns. That's why calming pre-sleep habits are so important. Dim lighting, predictable schedules, and limited alcohol all help reinforce a firm line between waking and sleep. They remind the brain what state it should be in. They tell the body, stay still, stay asleep, stay safe. Have you ever realized you are dreaming while still inside the dream? That strange moment of awareness when you suddenly think, wait, this isn't real. Maybe you're flying, or talking to someone who's no longer alive, or walking through a glowing version of a street you've never seen before. And something clicks. That's lucid dreaming, the state where your mind becomes aware of the dream while still dreaming. What makes lucid dreaming so fascinating is that the prefrontal cortex, usually quiet during REM sleep, lights back up. It brings back logical thinking and self-awareness into a surreal landscape. You're still asleep, still in the dream, but you know you're dreaming. Cultures have described this state for centuries. In Tibetan Buddhism, dream yoga encourages maintaining awareness in the dream state for insight and spiritual growth. Western science caught up more recently. In the 1970s, psychologist Keith Hearn recorded the first verified lucid dream using eye movements during sleep. Since then, brain scans have shown that lucid dreams involve a hybrid pattern. Parts of the brain are in REM sleep, but others show activity more typical of wakefulness. I had a lucid dream once that still sticks with me. I was standing in a quiet, dreamlike version of a street. Everything felt too saturated. I noticed the street lamp flicker and thought, this is too strange. I must be dreaming. I looked at my hands and spun in place. Something I'd heard could stabilize the dream. For about 30 seconds, I was fully present in that space. Then it faded. But it stayed with me, like I had touched another layer of myself. Lucid dreams are rare for most people, but they can be trained. Some techniques include reality checks, asking yourself if you're dreaming during the day and noticing odd details. This habit can carry into dreams. Mnemonic induction involves repeating a phrase before sleep, like next time I'm dreaming, I'll remember I'm dreaming. Wake back to bed methods involve waking after 5 or 6 hours, staying up briefly, then going back to sleep, increasing the chance of entering REM with awareness. Dream journaling also helps. Writing down your dreams each morning strengthens recall and helps you notice patterns that might become cues inside the dream. Lucid dreaming has meaningful uses too. People with recurring nightmares or PTSD have used it to change dream outcomes and regain a sense of control. It's also being explored for rehearsal, therapy, and creative insight. Interestingly, people who lucid dream regularly tend to score higher on metacognition, the ability to think about their own thinking. This suggests lucid dreams aren't just fantasy. They reflect a deeper layer of self-awareness, a mirror inside the mind, a simulation where you are both observer and participant. Lucid dreams remind us that sleep isn't passive. Even in its most surreal forms, the brain is still active, still processing, still exploring. And once in a while, it lets you walk through the door and say, I see this. I'm here. Let's take a deep breath together. You've probably had one of those nights. You're in bed, lights off. You've done all the right things, but your mind won't settle. The thoughts circle. The clock seems to glow brighter the longer you stare. And no matter how much you try not to care, your brain doesn't get the message. This is insomnia, common, frustrating, and often misunderstood. Tonight, we're looking at what it really is, why it happens, and what your body might be trying to tell you. First, not all insomnia is the same. Some people can't fall asleep. That's called onset insomnia. Others fall asleep but wake up in the middle of the night. That's maintenance insomnia. Then there are those who wake too early, hours before their alarm, and can't drift back. That's sometimes called terminal insomnia. They all feel different, but they all leave you tired, disconnected, and out of rhythm with the world. And each has its own causes. Stress, of course, but also anxiety, hormonal shifts, chronic pain, inconsistent routines, or sometimes a misaligned nervous system. I've had nights, many actually, where everything around me felt perfect for sleep. Soft sheets, low lights, no noise, but inside my thoughts were pacing, and I didn't know why. What helped wasn't trying harder, it was giving up the fight. Sleep can't be forced, but it can be allowed. There's often a mismatch in insomnia. Your body feels tired, but your brain feels wired. This happens when the stress circuits in your nervous system stay activated even when you're physically still. That's why you might feel your heart beating faster, your breathing shallow, your mind unusually sharp, even after a peaceful evening. Cortisol, the stress hormone, can stick around longer than we realize, and when it does, it tells your brain to stay alert, not to rest. We can also look at insomnia through two broader lenses, acute and chronic. Acute insomnia comes on during stressful periods, a breakup, travel, deadlines, and usually fades when the stressor does. But chronic insomnia, the kind that lingers for months or years, is different. It may start with a trigger, but over time, the worry about not sleeping becomes the thing keeping you awake. It's a loop. One bad night, then dread about the next, and suddenly sleep becomes something you chase. And when it starts to feel like a performance, it stops showing up. Triggers vary. Sometimes it's internal. Anxious thoughts, mental health struggles, hormonal fluctuations. Other times it's external. Caffeine too late, bright screens, irregular timing. Even your bedroom can send mixed messages. Too warm, too bright, too associated with daytime stimulation. The body listens to all of it. Let me ask you something gently. Have you ever brushed off your sleep issues as just stress, or just part of being busy? Have you said, "I'll catch up this weekend," only to find that weekend never actually resets you? You're not alone. And more importantly, you're not broken. Your body may simply be waiting for a signal of safety. One thing we often get wrong about insomnia is that we treat sleep like a task, something to achieve or fix. But sleep isn't a goal. It's a side effect of calm. It arrives when the body slows down and the mind feels it can stop performing. That's where we're heading next. Many of us carry quiet myths about sleep, that everyone else does it better, that it's all about screens or timing. But some of those beliefs aren't helping. In the next chapter, we'll gently unlearn a few of them and replace them with softer truths that support real rest. Let's pause for a second and ask something simple. When was the last time you forgave yourself for not sleeping? Because for many people with insomnia, the hardest part isn't the lack of sleep. It's the spiral that comes afterward. The inner voice that says, "Why can't I sleep like everyone else? What's wrong with me?" That low dread as the night stretches forward. That's where CBTI, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, becomes so powerful. It doesn't force sleep. It reshapes our relationship to it. CBTI is one of the most effective treatments for chronic insomnia, often more helpful than medication and longer lasting. At its heart, CBTI is based on the idea that our thoughts, behaviors, and sleep patterns are connected in a loop. And with gentle shifts, that loop can soften. One of the first things CBTI teaches is to change how we treat the bed itself. If you lie awake too long, your brain starts to link your bed with frustration, not rest. The solution isn't to try harder. It's to change the pattern. If you can't sleep, you get up. You stretch, read something calming, and return when your body feels ready again. Over time, your brain relearns the message. This bed is for rest, not stress, not problem solving. CBTI also looks at the thoughts we carry about sleep. Maybe you've told yourself, if I don't fall asleep now, tomorrow will be a disaster. That belief adds pressure. CBTI invites curiosity instead of fear. Is that always true? Have there been tired days that still went okay? Could you shift that thought to something gentler, like I might be tired tomorrow, but I'll get through it like I always do? Your brain listens to the stories you tell it. If the story is I'm broken or I always fail at sleep, your body stays tense. But if the story becomes this night is just one moment and I can ride it out, your system starts to relax, even if sleep hasn't arrived yet. CBTI also includes something called sleep restriction therapy, which sounds harsh but is actually intuitive. The idea is to spend less time in bed if your sleep is fragmented. If you're only sleeping 5 hours, you start by limiting your time in bed to 5.5. That may sound backwards, but it increases sleep efficiency, less tossing, more depth. As your sleep becomes more consistent, you slowly expand the time again. I like to think of it like tuning a string. Too loose, and it won't play. Too tight, and it snaps. CBTI helps you find that sweet spot, the quiet balance where your mind and body meet in rest. And perhaps most importantly, CBTI reminds you that your sleep struggles are not your identity. You're not a bad sleeper. You're not failing. You're human, in a complex world, with a nervous system that's doing its best to protect you, even if it doesn't always feel that way. So if tonight is hard, remember this: you're not broken. You're not alone. You're just in a chapter your body hasn't finished yet, and chapters always change. There's a reason we say, I just need to sleep on it. Because sleep doesn't just help you think better, it helps you feel better. It restores something emotional. When we don't get enough sleep, it doesn't just make us tired, it changes how we feel. You might find yourself snapping at small things, feeling heavy for no clear reason, or even feeling numb, like something inside has gone quiet. This isn't weakness or personality. It's neuroscience. One of the brain's key emotional centers is the amygdala, the part that alerts you to threats and triggers strong reactions. Normally, your prefrontal cortex helps regulate that response. It says this isn't an emergency, just a little stress. But after sleep loss, that connection weakens. The amygdala becomes louder. The prefrontal cortex goes quiet. So your emotional reactions become stronger, while your ability to regulate them fades. Have you ever had one of those days where you surprised yourself? Maybe you snapped at someone or got overwhelmed over something small, and you thought, why did that hit me so hard? Chances are, you weren't just moody. You were under-resourced. Your brain was trying to manage emotions without its full toolkit. Sleep deprivation also affects another part of the brain, the anterior cingulate cortex, which helps you notice how you're feeling and self-correct. When this region goes quiet, not only are you more emotionally reactive, but you're also less aware that you're reacting. It's like trying to drive with a foggy windshield and not realizing the fog is there. And then there's your brain's reward system, the parts that help you feel joy, satisfaction, and connection. After sleep loss, these systems get out of sync. You crave comfort, sugar, scrolling, distraction, but the pleasure feels dulled. You might keep reaching for relief, but nothing really lands. It can feel flat, frustrating, lonely. I've felt this too, where nothing feels good, even things I usually love. It's like the color fades a little. And when I look back, I realize I've just been tired, not broken, not disconnected, just depleted. The research backs this up. Even partial sleep deprivation, just a few hours, can increase emotional volatility the next day. People misread facial expressions, overreact to small challenges, and get stuck in negative thought loops more easily. The mind becomes more sensitive and less flexible. But here's the gentle truth. It's reversible. These effects ease with rest. The nervous system recalibrates. The brakes come back online. And just understanding what's happening can be a kind of relief. You're not being dramatic. You're not failing. You're just tired. If today feels like too much, maybe the most important thing you can give yourself isn't motivation, but rest. Sleep won't solve every problem, but it can return your emotional balance. And that balance can help you meet the day with a little more steadiness and a little more self-kindness. Some nights, we don't just fall asleep, we return to ourselves. Sleep, especially deep and uninterrupted sleep, has a quiet way of stitching us back together. It doesn't just help your memory or restore your muscles. It creates a felt sense of safety inside you, an emotional calm that no checklist can replicate. Let's slow down for a moment. Think about the last time you truly rested, not just physically, but emotionally. When you woke up not with panic, not with pressure, but with ease. With that quiet inner feeling that said, everything's okay. That's what this chapter is about. During REM sleep, your brain performs something remarkable. It replays emotional memories, but removes the sharp edge of stress. Neuroscientist Matthew Walker describes this as overnight therapy. In REM, you revisit the emotional content of the day, but with the stress hormones turned down. The story remains, but the sting fades. This helps explain why dreams often contain people or feelings from recent experience. They aren't nonsense, they're reprocessing, a form of emotional filing. That's not just time passing, that's sleep doing its work. Even in childhood, studies show that naps help with emotional regulation. After rest, toddlers are more patient, less reactive. And adults, though we rarely admit it, are the same. Across cultures, bedtime has long carried emotional meaning. In many places, the rituals of bedtime offer more than routine. They offer closure. The brain, especially during REM, activates the default mode network, the system responsible for reflection, empathy, and imagination. While your body is still, your inner world is weaving meaning. That's why, after real rest, you may feel more patient, more present, more like yourself. Sleep resets your emotional set point, the mood you return to when nothing is pulling you too hard. Without sleep, that baseline can drift toward irritability or sadness. With sleep, it returns to calm. Maybe that's why, in hard seasons, people say, I just need to sleep. Not to escape, but to recover. To return to a place where things feel manageable again. Sleep, though passive, becomes one of the most active forces for emotional healing. And that's the quiet beauty of it. Even when nothing else seems to help, a good night's sleep often does. Not by fixing everything, but by helping you feel safe inside your own skin again. For many people, nighttime isn't peaceful. It's when the noise in the mind grows louder, when distractions fade and what's left are thoughts that refuse to quiet. Worries, regrets, loops of conversation, plans that feel urgent even though nothing is happening. You lie there, hoping to rest, but your brain won't let go. This is insomnia, not just the experience of being awake, but of feeling unsafe while awake in the dark. Researchers describe insomnia as a state of hyperarousal. Your body looks still, but your nervous system stays alert. Heart rate elevated, breathing shallow, cortisol rising. And cognitively, you're stuck in rehearsal, trying to solve, plan, fix things that can't be fixed at 2 a.m. How upstay insomnia? If you've ever stared at the ceiling in silence while your mind spun in circles, you know this feeling. It's not just exhaustion, it's a sense of chasing rest that keeps moving farther away. Insomnia changes the emotional meaning of night. What was once a place of softness becomes a battleground. Your bed, instead of signaling safety, begins to carry the memory of struggle. This is called conditioned arousal, where the place you associate with sleep becomes linked to frustration instead. The more nights you spend stuck in that cycle, the more you begin to fear the night itself. It becomes a kind of quiet dread. You watch the clock. You count the hours you're losing. And with every minute that passes, the pressure builds. Insomnia can feel invisible. There's no fever, no cast, no way to show the exhaustion. But inside, it's loud, it's lonely, and it often comes with shame. The belief that you should be able to sleep, that everyone else can, that something must be wrong with you. But insomnia is not a flaw. It's a signal that something in your system is overactive or misaligned. Often, it's tied to anxious thinking, trauma, or mental health struggles. Sometimes it's environmental, screens, caffeine, inconsistency, and sometimes it's simply habit, a pattern your body has learned over time. There's also a social story around insomnia, the idea that needing sleep is weak or that struggling to sleep means you're not doing enough, but that's not true. Insomnia is not laziness, it's not lack of effort. It's a loop that can be softened, not by trying harder, but by changing the emotional meaning of sleep. That's where CBTI and other forms of gentle reconditioning come in. They help retrain your brain to see night as a place of rest, not pressure. And sometimes even just hearing someone speak softly to you like now can help interrupt the loop. You don't have to sleep right this moment. You don't have to win the night. You can just listen. You can be here. And your body, even if it doesn't fully rest yet, is still hearing calm. It's still registering safety. If the night feels unsafe, know that your body hasn't forgotten how to sleep. It just needs help remembering. And with time, care, and gentleness, it will. Rest always wants to return. Let's be honest. When sleep doesn't come, it can feel like a battle. You try to do everything right. The lights, the routine, the quiet. But the harder you try, the further sleep drifts away. That's not failure, it's biology. Because sleep isn't something you make happen. It's something that emerges when the right conditions are in place. Sleep is a reflex, not a task. You can't force it, but you can support it. And that begins by working with your brain's natural rhythms instead of against them. Two key systems shape your ability to sleep. Your circadian rhythm, which keeps time based on light and darkness, and your sleep pressure system, which builds the longer you're awake. If either gets disrupted, too much light at night, sleeping in too late, or inconsistent bedtimes, the signals your body needs to initiate sleep can get scrambled. The good news is that your body is trainable, and it doesn't need perfection, just consistency. Step 1 is to stop battling your bed. If you've been lying awake for more than 20 or 30 minutes, get up. Do something quiet, screen-free, and uninteresting. A puzzle, a few pages of a book, folding laundry. not to punish yourself, but to reset the association. Over time, your brain relearns. The bed is for sleep, not for struggling. Step 2 is to start the wind down earlier than you think. Sleep doesn't begin the moment you lie down. It begins hours before. Lower the lights after dinner. Avoid caffeine late in the day. Change into comfortable clothes, brush your teeth earlier, or do one thing every evening that says, "We're closing now." It doesn't have to be elaborate, it just has to be repeated. And if you wake up in the middle of the night, don't panic. You're not broken. In fact, segmented sleep, waking briefly between two stretches of rest, was common in many historical periods. It's not always a problem. What matters is how you respond. Try not to reach for your phone or check the clock. Instead, breathe, stay still, let your thoughts wander gently. That calm reaction is part of teaching your body that it's okay to rest again. And remember, rest isn't only sleep. It's any state that helps your nervous system reset. That could mean a short nap, stepping outside for a few minutes of sunlight in the morning, or taking quiet breaks during the day. These moments signal safety, and safety is what invites sleep. Here's something I remind myself when sleep is difficult. I'm not failing. I'm recalibrating. Sleep isn't something I earn through performance. It's something I rebuild through pattern. Even if tonight isn't perfect, that doesn't erase the progress. My effort still matters. Yours does too. You're learning to work with your body now, not against it, and that changes everything. As we reach the end of this episode, let's take one last, slow breath and gently look back at what we've explored together. You've learned that sleep isn't just a shut-off switch. It's a bridge between your thinking mind and your dreaming self. We've seen how voices, rituals, memories, and even ancient instincts shape the way we rest. You've drifted through stories of connection, science, emotion, and the quiet rhythms of the body. We've talked about why sleep sometimes disappears and how it can be welcomed back. You've learned that even when the night feels long, your brain is doing its work, reorganizing, calming, healing, remembering. We wandered through dreams, cultural traditions, creative insights, and the emotional scaffolding that sleep quietly rebuilds. And we returned again and again to the simple truth. You are not alone in your search for rest. Even when sleep feels far away, your body hasn't forgotten how to get there. It just needs time, and softness, and space. So tonight, if sleep comes quickly, let it carry you gently. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. You're still resting. You're still being held. The rhythm will return. Not always on command, but always in time. Before we fade out, I want to leave you with one last question. What story does your sleep need to tell tonight? Not the one from your to-do list, not the one from your phone, but the one your body already knows, the one your mind is still quietly writing. Whatever that story is, trust that your brain is ready to begin it. All you have to do is let go. No pressure, no fixing, just stillness, a breath, a pause, a little distance from the noise, and a slow return to yourself. We'll leave you here, with silence, space, and room to drift. Thank you for spending this time with us. And if you're still awake, that's perfectly okay. You're resting, you're safe, and you're not alone. Good night.